project that developed labs that derive students' inquiry and critical thinking process. So, this is the outline for the presentation today, so we're going to go over from the introduction to the discussion. So starting from the introduction, so I thought, and we already experienced this, so the lab activity helped us to see how a physics concept is applied to the real world, and it helps to understand the physics concept even better. So I thought this would be really a good opportunity for me as a future physics educator, so that I can really have an experience of designing lab and executing it, so that I can be more prepared for my future career. So, to make the process even more successful, I researched some information related to the effective laboratory activity, and one of them is from the AAPT. So, AAPT said these are the 5 goals for the physics laboratory. So simply it means the laboratory activity must be able to help students understand the physics concept by giving different methods, opportunities, and analytical tools, and as well as the opportunities to work in groups. So basically it means the laboratory activity is really important to learn physics or science in general. And another powerful tool to learn physics is the inquiry-based learning. So basically it means we're going to stimulate the students' critical thinking process through questions so that they can actually experience those learning opportunities by their own work and lab. So the inquiry-based learning could help students to understand the physics concept even better. And we can align that concept with the scientific method, and this is going to help them students even more. So based on those 2 concepts, I've decided to redesign the 2 labs in our college. So the 2 labs were Galilean Relativity Lab and Force and 2D Motion. But due to the lab schedule, we've done only the Galilean Relativity Lab so far, so we're going to focus on that lab for today's presentation. So the objectives for the redesigned lab was to help students understand Galilean transformation as well as the reference frames, both inertial and non-inertial reference frame. And I wanted to link what they have already learned about one-dimensional motion so that they can have a better background knowledge to use to understand the new concept like the law of conservation of momentum. So the direction of the redesigned lab was to use slow motion camera of a phone, Excel, and Pascal software as a technology, and I want it to be more inquiry-based so that students can actually experience those lab activity so that they can derive their own forming of understanding through those activities. Okay, so this was the actual apparatus for the lab, and we had 2 activities for that lab. So the first one with the single object. So here we got 2 tables. This front table has a card connected to a pulley. So if you let it go, it's going to accelerate at a certain rate because of the weight. And then we have a ruler here, and we're going to use it as a calibration tool when we do data analysis. And another table has 2 cards, and this black, they're the phones actually. So each phones represent reference frames. So this one here represents the Earth reference frame, constantly moving reference frame, and accelerating reference frame. So we're going to use the slow motion cameras to take a video of the motion of this card, and then we're going to using video analysis to analyze those data to check the Galilean activity. So that was the first activity, and second activity we used the same setup, but instead of making a card be accelerating, we're going to use 2 cards and make them collide so that we can use the law of conservation of momentum to see whether the Galilean relativity holds or not. So after they take all the videos, they needed to upload these videos to the shared Google Drive, and they needed to download them and open them through the Pascal software, specifically video analysis. And then they're going to collect the data points, time, and X position or horizontal position of the card or cards by each 6 to 10 frames. And then they're going to make a table and export it to the Excel to plot a position time versus position graph, a position versus time graph in this trend line, which should be a quadratic function. And then they're going to use the trend line equation to compare the acceleration and the change in velocity in each reference frame. So this is the visual representation for the data analysis. So here, this is the Pascal software video analysis, and then I open a video here, and then by clicking this one, we can move about the number of frames that we want to move. So I get each data point by each 6 to 10 frames until I get about 24 data points. And I export that data to the Excel and draw a plot, a position versus time frame, and trend line as well. So to evaluate the lab itself, each student received the 4 documents. The lab instruction has the important information like relevant concept or procedures related to the lab, and lab worksheet, they need to fill in those questions while they do the lab. And then, to analyze the effectiveness of the lab itself, I decided to compare the averages between the pre and post lab. So these two have similar problems, but post lab have more advanced problems, so that I can compare those two averages to see how much the lab helps students to understand the concept specifically here in Galilean relativity. So the result and evaluation. So when I did the simulation with my professor, so this should be something looks like this. So the blue one represents the Earth reference frame, orange constantly moving, gray accelerating frame. So since Earth and constantly moving, these two are the inertial reference frame. To the Galilean relativity hold, the law of physics should be consistent throughout these two reference frames. So as we can see here, these two relatively has a similar acceleration. So yeah, these two are consistent, but the gray one, the accelerating frame, has a different acceleration, which it should be because it is a non-inertial reference frame. The law of physics should not be the same between those two big reference frames. And then we also get the data for the change in velocity for the activity 2, the collision one. So each red and blue car measured in 2 different frames. So these two measured in constantly moving reference frame have relatively this close change in velocity, which they should be because that's the inertial reference frame. And as we know, this is the non-inertial reference frame, so the law of physics work indifferently in between those two reference frames. So this was the ideal situation, but there were 3 big issues that I didn't have when I had a simulation. So the first, students have issues by uploading those videos. So they needed to convert those videos into MP4 file, and that took a good amount of time of the lab. And the second one, they had a hard time to use the software. And then they had the procedures. Some of the computers didn't work well, so sometimes it crashed by the software. So they had a hard time to do this. And the biggest one, so I had 2 sections for the lab, and then one of the sections had an issue for the slow motion camera. So one of the cameras, they stopped recording the videos in slow motion, and that actually messed up all the FPS, which means data points. So they had those issues when they did the lab, and I didn't have the issues when I did the simulations. So the result, the quantitative result, which the comparison between the averages pre-lab and post-lab, I'm still currently working on it because we've done this lab about 2 weeks ago. But qualitatively, I could read the room that due to those 3 big issues, students had a hard time to finish those lab and follow the catch-up and procedures. And so, based on those, I had an evaluation with my professor and lab instructor. We said the setup or the idea of the lab itself would be great for the students to see how the reference frames work. But in order to make this lab even more successful, we needed to find a way to do data analysis more safely. And we're gonna do that in the near future so that we can have a better lab procedures in lab worksheet. The overall experience, I cannot say the lab was successful, but it was a good experience of myself so that I can experience. So there are many things I need to consider before I launch a lab for the students. And then even I did that, there's still possibility that it could mess it up. And then I hope this experience can help me to prepare for the next lab and my future career. And also I hope this experience could help the department itself so that they can have more various methods to help students understand the physics concept.